home or to rent an apartment here. People are paying 300 more times for property insurance here in the state of Florida. We witnessed Ashley Moody fail to extend the ACA subsidies, which caused nearly 300,000 people to be knocked off of the Affordable Care Act rolls. She doesn't care about anyone but herself. And also, she did that because her campaign donors are health insurance companies. And so I look forward, Ashley Moody, to taking you on and to whooping you in November, and you will be calling me your senator.
State Representative Angie Nixon, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Now to CNN's Harry Enton, who's at the Magic Wall. Harry, I mean, what does Nixon's win tell us about the strength of the Democratic Socialist wing of the party?
Well, those were some strong words at the end of that interview. My goodness gracious. Look, it's a dominating win. I mean, Angie Nixon knocking off Alex Vindman, who obviously was a hero of the first time around with the first Trump impeachment. I think his defeat is part of the rejection of that resistance 1.0, but it also speaks to the power right now that Democratic Socialists have within the party, right? You can see it. It's a clear win. It's a 12-point win. She's in that, Columbia blue on your screen. You can see it across here. She didn't just win in one part of the state. She was winning across the state, and that, of course, powered that double-digit victory. Now, that, in my opinion, is part of a larger picture of where the DSA is right now. So we can pull it up right here. You can see it right here. Okay, DSA or DSA-endorsed congressional candidates. Currently in Congress, there are only two. There are only two. Now, with that win tonight in Florida, in terms of winning in the 2026 primaries, we're talking about 8. 7 are favorites to win in November. Miss Nixon is not one of them. She's certainly an underdog. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how that race unfolds. But you can definitely see that the DSA is gaining ground. That being said, I will note, in terms of the overall scorecard in 2026, 8 have won primaries. But if you look, the clear vast majority have lost 17 plus, depending on how you count it. So what we're talking about is 1/3 of the DSA or DSA endorsed candidates have won, but the vast majority, Laura Coates, they have in fact gone down to defeat. So the Democratic Party is not the Democratic Socialist Party, at least not quite yet.
And tonight also showed the limits to the power of a Trump endorsement, Harry. At least 2 Florida congressional races. What happened?
Yeah, what happened? Well, one of them is about scandals, and it turns out that scandals still actually do matter. And we're going to go to northeast of Orlando, Florida, go to the 7th Congressional District. Corey Mills, who, of course, was scandal-laden, he was Trump-backed. He went down to defeat. This is part of what we've seen throughout this primary season. We have seen those scandal-plagued candidates having some trouble. Yes, Donald Trump obviously has been able to sort of rise above it, but the other candidates who are running, scandals at least still do matter in a number of circumstances. Corey Mills only getting 34% of the vote. Ryan Elijah easily winning there, 47% of the vote. He is a favorite come November. And then I will also note another race, and that was the race to replace Byron Donalds. Look at this. Okay, Catalina Loft getting 22% of the vote. That was a late Trump endorsement, but we have seen this throughout the primary season. Yes, you're seeing in those higher up-ticket ballot measures or those running for higher office, especially for Senate, doing pretty well with the Trump endorsement, but lower down and those for governor have struggled. That was a late endorsement for Trump. I bet he probably wishes that he didn't do it. I will also just note this was an insane district. She ran in Illinois. He ran in Illinois. He was a congressman from North Carolina, and he was a congressman from New York. So it was a really messy race, but one in which the Trump endorsed candidate lost.
Looks like everyone won by a gamble, or sorry, Florida.
Yeah. That's right. There you go. There you go. New York is the apple.
There you go. Wow. Anyway, thank you so much. And with me now, an all-star panel to help us understand what happened tonight and more importantly, what it means for November. Our resident Florida man, senior policy reporter for Axios, Mark Caputo, former communications director for Vice President Kamala Harris, Ashley Etienne, CNN political commentator Scott Jennings, and contributor University Navarro. Glad to have all of you here. All right, so let's talk about Angie Nixon because she pulled no punches, minced no words. Ashley, do you think that she has a shot in a state like Florida?
Can I say no? I mean,
you can say whatever you want. It's truthful.
It's Florida. I mean, she's she won the race I think she could win, which was primary race in the Democratic in a Democratic primary. She's a better political athlete than Vindman is. You know, she was outspent 35 times. I think what was interesting though, she only spent $60,000 and none of it was on TV, none of it was on broadcast, none of it was on cable. She ran a purely grassroots campaign, and we've seen that across the country where money is, there's limitations to money now, there's limitations to endorsements. We just talked about Donald Trump's endorsements, endorsed candidates losing, and it seems like now with the winning formula is going back to the basics, and she went back to the basics. She's from Florida, she's of Florida, and it worked. But I think it only worked for the primary because, you know, you have to appeal to a broader audience when you're running statewide in a state like Florida, and I'm not sure she's got the ability to do that.
Let's look at the numbers because, Mark, you are a resident Floridian tonight, and look at these numbers, everyone. This is really, really telling. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vindman did outraise and outspend Angie Nixon and also Senator Ashley Moody, and he lost. What does that tell you?
He was a terrible candidate. Difficult for me to put that in words. Some of our conference calls and things, I would just start to rant. I was almost offended by his just inability to campaign properly.
How did he do it? Yeah.
Well, it's more like how did he not do it? I don't really know where that money was spent because you didn't really see him on television. You didn't really see him on you didn't see him in news. You didn't see him in text messages. There was no presence. About 7 days ago, in preparation for today, I started to think, okay, what's the polling show? And I couldn't find any polling, which is a very rare thing in a statewide election in Florida. It's something of this import, the Senate seat. And I called a number of pollsters, and everyone's like, no, we're just not paying attention to it. And I realized, well, let's see. I'm not seeing Vindman really campaign. He has no real roots here. He's essentially sort of carpetbagged here. I didn't even know the guy lived in the state. I thought, like his brothers in Congress, he lived in Virginia. And so then I started to think, well, Angie Nixon's a known commodity. She comes from Jacksonville, which is a large media market with a lot of voters. She has an active coterie of progressive supporters who are very into her. And she made her presence known on social media. And a lot of Democrats just didn't know who she was, including my own wife, who is a longtime Democratic voter. She was not contacted by either campaign. Voters like that wanted to poll Democratic voters. They saw a man they didn't know and a woman they didn't know. And a lot of them voted for the woman they didn't know. A lot of progressives showed up because they wanted to vote for the progressive. And a lot of people just didn't show. It was a pretty low turnout primary. All of these things combined together very well for her. Not to take away from her, I agree she was certainly the superior political athlete. Angie Nixon was a better candidate who ran a better campaign, and she won.
Also, black voters made a big difference in that.
100%.
Race. Vindman was polling and performing poorly with black voters. It became a national story, in fact, and she, the very opposite of that, and her last campaign stop was in a black church. I mean, she literally has been in that community, engrossed in it for years. So she had that advantage. One, this combination of black voters, progressives, and then some white progressive voters.
Sure, 28% of those.
Interesting notion, though, that because on the one hand, you don't want to diminish what her accomplishment is, or her track record and her resume. On the other hand, it sounds like this race might not be predictive of a larger, much more involved one, but how are Republicans going to play this?
I mean, in Florida, Ashley Moody, popular person, should be fine. Democratic socialists are not going to be very popular in Florida. I heard parts of Florida. I heard Ms. Nixon say it's not about labels, which I find curious. She joined the Socialist Party just this summer. She affixed the label to herself, only now to say, well, it's not really about labels. Actually, I think Ashley Moody's remarks were dead on. She's just reading out of the Democratic Socialist platform to align herself with people who fundamentally would like to rip what we know is how America works out, root and branch. Kind of anti-American. And all these socialists, whether they're in Florida or any other state, are going to face these same kinds of attacks. So I think Ashley Moody has the advantage here. Vindman, look, I agree with you, terrible candidate. He's been kind of a grift all the way through. And the fact that these lib donors gave him $16 million, they might have given him more actually, to watch him, piss it away on this grift. I don't know where it went either. I assume the consultants all have fine beach houses all up and down the coast now, but it's a grift. He's been a grift for years, and he paid for it
But
tonight.
here's the thing, Scott, and what I'm hearing you say is that no grifting and also norm busting is seen as anti-American. It's been successful for other candidates who look at these issues and say,
The one busting is what you call the social.
oh, no, that's not what I call norm busting, but I thought it was well, I'm old. Hold on, wait, they weren't trying to burn down the place? I'll finish my point, and I want you to respond to what actually I can say, but also when you're from Lulu, and that the idea that she did sign on to Democrat Socialist this summer. I interviewed her yesterday, asked her about issues like the policies for the union, talked about why not have the for-profit prisons and industrial complexes as one of the issues. But to me, there's a bigger tent available for Democrats, and that there is nuance and non-monoliths within both parties. Now, whether that actually works for her ultimately, Lulu, I'd love to hear your response.
I'm also a Florida person, Florida woman, to Mark's Florida man. This is what I think. I think Vindman was a terrible candidate. I think when you're running statewide in Florida, it's really hard to be a carpetbagger because name recognition really does matter. He was kind of coasting off of the idea that he had name recognition because of what happened in Trump, in the first term, and that's just simply not the case. I also think, that it is going to be hard for a Democratic Socialist to win in Florida simply because you have the Cuban community, the Colombian community, the Venezuelan community, the Nicaraguan community, thank you, who don't like those words, who see this
Not
movement.
women like it. Are you suggesting that socialism might not have a great reputation among some people?
I'm suggesting that it's certainly, like my family, they fled from Cuba, communism, which is, I'm not saying these two things are the same. What I'm saying is that there's a deep-seated antipathy towards that particular strain, and they're worried about it. That said, the Latino vote is very powerful. Half of it is Puerto Rican, and they don't carry that same baggage. So,
I don't know that anybody black can win in the state of Florida statewide. And we'll see what Biden does.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, the national race I'm talking about, just to
Byron Donalds is favored.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We'll see what actually happens with Byron.
I'm going to interview him in just a moment as well and get his take.
Because I just think there's a lot of deep-seated racism. I've campaigned in Florida several times, several presidential campaigns, deep in these counties. If you look at where Byron lost, they're Republican, white, deep red, rural counties.
Gillum lost by literally half a
Different time. So I'm just saying he still lost. My point is I'm just not sure anybody can pull it off, but I hope Byron can. It'll be interesting to see if he can. I'm just not sure anyone can.
Well, she does hit on a great point, which is Byron Donalds, for all of his advantages in this campaign, including the Trump, including a superior team, Jay Collins and Andrew Sullivan, usually a former lieutenant governor, really a sort of great step in a clown show. But Donald's leading the 50%. That's going to be problematic.
I'm asking about that. But he's loving all of your optimism. I'm just saying.
I said problematic. I think he's going to win. Just some optimism.
Well, there you know what? We'll ask you. Stand by, everyone. Remember, you are part of this election night. We want to hear from you. Text us your questions and your comments at 818-972-7272. Include your first name and your city or state. We'll answer them later in the hour. Up next, more on that battle for governor in Florida. Democrat David Jolly vowing to pull off an upset against Trump-backed Byron Donalds. The congressman is live with me to respond next.
Have I got news for you? Your September 12th on CNN.